Hello, besties, and welcome to the latest installment of our podcast, of which I have forgotten the name. Sarah, quickly, what are we called?
We are playful leadership and
We
other
are
things.
Playful Leadership and Other Things. That is it. Thank you so much. And I am Lucy, your co host, and I am going to be doing all the talking first because I want Sarah to be a yapper in today's call because she has been doing the most exceptional and exciting things recently, and I can't wait for her to tell us all about it. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lucy. I'm a specialist in leadership development and human centered organizational well being, and I am obsessed with anything that makes life more playful, more joyful, and just enriches that human experience. Before I pass over to Sarah to give a bit of an explanation and background and tell us what she's been up to, I'm going to tell you the thing that has brought me some real joy this week, because that's how we started. What has been playful for us? What's made us smile? And Sarah, this week, I was thinking about it last night, and whilst it's not traditionally play, I have been my weird little self with as many people as possible. I have tried to have open and honest and human conversations with people, dropping the pretense. And it's been amazing. I've had so many conversations that have felt soul level with people that you wouldn't expect them. I was having a conversation with a global director of sales for a massive organization. And at the end of it, I was sending him photos of the angel cards that I had just drawn to him. And we had just been discussing everything from the spiritual realm to the purpose of life to the things that light us up with joy. And I just love the fact that when we dare to step outside of the narrative that we think we should be filling, then we find another weird little human that is probably going to surprise you. So that's made my heart happy, to be quite honest. Sarah, let's speak to you. You tell us, and then tell us what your playful thing has been. But then tell me all about the conference that you have just been at.
I'm going to pause on that to start with and just respond to what you've said, because I love that as an example of playfulness. Because although you said this isn't traditionally playfulness, to me, that is playfulness embodied. So when we're in this playful mindset and we can get into that, that's exactly the sort of things that we do. It enables us to step out of our normal comfort zone with no particular like objective other than just to see how that goes. Like,
Yeah.
what a great experiment. I'm just going to start having conversations with people I wouldn't normally chat to in a way that I wouldn't normally chat to them and see what happens. What a beautiful example of doing that. Thank you for
Thank
sharing it.
you. Well, thank you.
My example is a little bit more frivolous. So I've just been to Australia. Anyone who's followed me on LinkedIn will know that I have been at the International Positive Psychology Association World Congress in Brisbane, which we will come on to shortly. But obviously, I left my family for 10 days to do that. So I had to bring them gifts back. And I had a great time in the Australian tourist souvenir shop. And I brought back the most popular thing I brought back was this good A button, right? You boy, okay. And it is just loaded with all of these like cheesy
I
Aussie
need this in my house.
things. You've got one.
I know I need one. I want
Oh, you
one.
need one. Well, I can tell you where you can get one. And I actually bought this for my husband, who is Australian, and I just thought this will be kind of like a fun little um, teasy present to bring back to him. But what I love is that, I mean, obviously my kids have got hold of it and they love it and, you know, play with it all the time. But what I love is that he has it on his desk, and we have offices, his office is in the next door room to mine. And then every now and again, I hear him. He's like been on a call or something, and he comes off this call, and then I hear a. I just, I just love the fact that he's just sitting there, and he's quite a, you know, he works in quite a serious, like very corporate, global environment. You know, there's not a lot of kind of play and laughter that I hear coming from the calls he has in his office. But I love the fact that he's just got this, and I hear him kind of every now and again just go, there you go. It just makes you laugh, and it can be. So I guess these two examples that we've given are like opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like what playfulness can be. So at one end, it can be like really deep and profound and beautiful and enable you to move out of your comfort zone and do what you've described doing. And at the other end of it, it can just be like a bit of fun that just gives you something that uplifts your day in a really frivolous, light-hearted way. That's not to say that isn't also doing good, but it's just to illustrate the like broad spectrum of what we're talking about here.
Okay, dokes. So, Sarah, you just touched upon it. You have been at the Global Positive Psychology Conference. I was desperate to watch you present there, but alas, half term had other plans. So tell us, I want to hear all the ins and outs of what this was like for you.
It was amazing in short words. And I really struggled to kind of bring it all together in a way that feels coherent. But I guess like the first thing to say, and I've posted, if anyone follows me on LinkedIn, I've posted a couple of posts about it because it's taken me a bit of a while to just sort of digest and kind of unpick from it all because it was such an intense experience. So for anyone who doesn't know, the International Positive Psychology Association run a world congress every 2 years, and where all of the sort of leading researchers and practitioners in the world of positive psychology come together, share research, share practice, share good vibes. It's just a beautiful, beautiful coming together of minds. And this year it was in Brisbane, where it was just a couple of weeks ago, and I've just come back from there myself. I think for me, the overarching takeaway was just this enormous sense of connection, of belonging, and everyone was saying it. You just like, if you think about going to these, industry conferences or corporate conferences, whatever whatever you've experienced before. Imagine that, but just full of your best mates.
Oh, wow.
And you just be walking past someone and they'd go, I really love that cardigan you're wearing. Or they'd go, I saw you in that session. I thought you asked a really great question. Like there was just, everybody was open, happy to talk, interested in what you had to say, had interesting things to say themselves. And, I rocked up there, the other side of the world. I didn't know anybody else who was going.
Did you not know anybody else who was going?
I hadn't met anybody else who was going before. Now, there were other people from the UK who were there, who I met when I was there, but nobody that I had actually knew beforehand. But it was as if I was with friends the whole week. And I think that speaks a lot about the power of the positive psychology movement. Lots of people were talking about it as a movement. So it is a field of research, and there's very robust scientific evidence behind it. It's rigorous. It takes itself very seriously as a field of study, and it is a movement. It's asking these really big, important questions about, well, how can we solve or contribute to solving these big problems that we are experiencing in the world today? And how do we do that through the lens of understanding human nature and the best of human nature, and how we get the best from human nature? So if you imagine there were like 1,000 or so people there, and every single one of those people is on board with that mission in some sense, in some way.
It felt amazing.
Just incredible. Yeah. And I'm back now, and I'm really sad that I didn't take more pictures because, I want to sort of have captured that. At the time, I was like, I don't need pictures. I'm in the moment. Like this is, and I even had a conversation with someone about like, I don't want to live this through pictures. I want to live this through the experience. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But just to, I can just close my eyes and imagine myself in that conference, in the main conference theatre. And just the energy that was in there was just incredible. But that is just me gushing about it. It isn't actually that useful for anybody else.
But to be fair though, as somebody who's listening to it, I feel that like my nervous system is like feeling all of the good stuff that you are saying. Like it's all good, and it's setting the stage, isn't it? The power of the collective, when you can create an environment where people are expected to be themselves, where they're expected to not have on armor to protect themselves, to be barriered. You enter a space where it's not about competition, it's about collective growth. And just the experience is a huge lesson of what positive psychology actually means.
Absolutely. It's walking the talk. for sure. And it's not just that expectation that you can be yourself, it's that underlying assumption that yourself is of value. And whatever part you play, like whether you were there as somebody who was right at the beginning of their positive psychology journey, whether you were there as a professor whose whole career, for the past 30, 40 years has been in positive psychology, you were welcome there. And I met people who, at both ends of that spectrum, I met people who worked in event management who hadn't studied positive psychology at all, but were along because they wanted to learn from it. I met people who were, who were professors and people I'd never heard of, but have been working behind the scenes for years and years in particular areas of specialty. And everybody was welcome. Everybody had something to offer. And everybody's offer and contribution was valued. And I think there's a real lesson from that in terms of how we run organizations, how we run teams. And this, we kind of have this very often hierarchical view of, the person with the most experience has the most weight in the room, what they've got to say is the most important. And I'm just a rookie, I'm just new here. So, I don't really have anything to offer. But there's such what it exemplified was that you can have breadth of experience and knowledge within a space and equality in the value that you bring into that space.
Absolutely.
And, that's a principle that is upheld in things like improv, for example. If you've ever done any improv, have you ever done any improv?
Like as a child, so decades ago.
You need to do it. You should that needs to be your project for the rest of the year. Do an improv course. I think you'd love it. You'd love it. It's a real lesson in putting in positive psychology practice in everyday life. So one of the fundamental principles of improv, any group of improv players that work together or that play together, is that everything is an offer and everybody is equal. So whatever part you contribute to this scene that you're building together is equally as important. So there might end up being one person in that group who does most of the talking, and then your bit, you may only see a bit for yourself that you might just come in right at the end of the scene and roll up in a ball and be a rock or something, like for a second, and then the scene ends. You are just as integral to that scene having been created as the person who took the reins first and sort of stepped on and said the first line and set it up. Every single person, no matter how big or small their contribution, is valued for their contribution, because we are not just individuals. We are part of a system. We are part of a whole, and we all have a part to play in that. And that was such a theme to the week, and one of the criticisms of positive psychology has been that it takes a very westernized, individualistic view of well-being. And, we could unpick that until the cows come home. But we're moving into this kind of third or even fourth wave of positive psychology now, where we're asking those questions. Well, actually, who are we as individuals if we're not part of a system? And what can we do? How can we look at things holistically in that sense of a system? Because we can give somebody all the tools that they have as an individual to thrive, but if that isn't conducive to the environment, then that's a totally unfair expectation to put on them. And also it's sort of shirking responsibility onto the individual when it's a collective. And we are collective animals, right? We are animals, and we are social animals. We work as a team, as a collective, as a system.
Yes.
So we have a responsibility now as experts in the field of human nature to ripple that out and go, okay, well, what is the environment that we need to create? What's the system that we're creating for ourselves to enable that flourishing and that thriving?
Absolutely.
And that's going to help us hugely in our contribution to these very big problems, very large, complex problems that we have to solve in the world today.
Absolutely. You have hit, there's 1,000 things I want to unpick from what you've just said, Sarah. So the first is this idea, that this westernized view of positive psychology, and you can't get around it. It is very individualistic. I'm literally reading a book at the minute. Where is it? The Social Paradox, and it's really good. And it's this kind of war cry for what the future looks like and what the world should look like. And it looks back at over time at societies and how we were all collective by nature because we're wired for that. But just because we are a collective doesn't mean it's always pleasure. And so we have these hardwired desires for autonomy and for connection. But when we are within a collective, we are also working for the greater good of the group. Therefore, everybody is entitled to our resources. Everybody is entitled to hold us to an extremely high standard of what performance is and what good is. And so there can be it can feel detrimental to self. And within this book, he argues that's why so many people have chosen autonomy, because there's less of the overbearingness and the kind of the ego blows and things like that. And I suppose for me, I have this idea that positive psychology started where it was. It started in America. So it's going to grow within the environment that it found itself. And now, like you're saying, and that is individualistic. And sometimes positive psychology saved my life. When I first found out about it, actually being taught by somebody about this topic did more for me than any therapy ever had. It gave me the tools to know myself, embrace myself, and to be well. And so I think it absolutely has that space. But we also need to strategic, which is what you were saying, how we link it back to building these thriving spaces. And I had sent an email to a client the other day, and they were on about some work and it links to a post you had put on LinkedIn about being at the festival and the idea of AI and leadership in the world and what that looks like. And I was talking with this individual about those topics, and they were trying to imagine the future of work with AI as a pivotal place to it. And this had been my response. I had said, the future is deeply human. As we enter the next stage of organisational growth, we have the mind-blowing opportunity to create cutting-edge spaces that facilitate human excellence, human well-being, and next-level performance. The organisations that the future needs are connected, agile, and deeply human. In the world where tech is outpacing human capacity to keep up, where AI can write our emails, schedule our days, and prepare our work, it can feel as though we, the people, are becoming redundant. This impacts our desires to strive at work, to be the positive force that we desire to be in our world. Why bother when AI can do our work in 1/10 of the time? Which could increase disengagement and mistrust, because we all know when somebody's using AI to connect with us, and not many of us like that. But instead of being sunk by the tech sent to save us, we can use it to supercharge well-being, performance, and connection. We learn to use AI as a tool, not a saviour. The future of business is rooted in the art of being human, using AI to stream admin tasks to free up space for creativity, innovation, and human connection. Traditional organisations are extractive by nature. They demand our time, our health, and numerous resources. But now we can shift to a regenerative system where we are strategically aware of tech and we use it to our betterment and not our detriment. In a world of system thinkers, we get to be system thinkers, exploring whole systems to see what processes supercharge us and what no longer serves us. We can develop brain-friendly spaces that allow for performance and connection, where thinking, creativity, and being human is the priority. I know that was really long, but I felt as though that was literally, that's where we're at. And I felt validated when you said that actually that's what the movement believes.
It is. I felt like that was beautiful. I feel like I was back there listening to one of the amazing talks that there was. It's absolutely that, this idea that, AI is coming to get us and take all our jobs and make us redundant is kind of like a false prediction of the future, because actually if we hold that as true, to me, the obvious sort of counterpart to that is that if AI does come and do all those things for us, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with being human. And we've kind of strayed, arguably, like a bit away from that. You know, we've forgotten how to connect with our bodies, with ourselves, with our instincts, with, you know, with the way that we are created, you know, the way that we've evolved. So actually, this dawn of a new era of AI is a real opportunity for us as humans to reconnect to what that means. And in doing that, we cannot but look at the systems and look at the, you know, how we're co-creating the space together, because that is, again, how we have evolved, what we are good at. You know, we spend all our time up here in our heads, in our brains, and valuing our cognitive power, our cognitive ability. And I'm one of the worst culprits for that. You know, I'm an extremely cognitive person, and I'm very prone to overthinking and, you know, tie myself up in knots over analysis paralysis and all of these things.
Oh yeah.
And this is why, for me, the idea of getting back to our humanness and back to ourselves and back to that basic instinct to play, to experiment, to explore, to be in the present moment, to be in our bodies, to follow our intuition and our instincts is so liberating and so freeing. And, you know, one of the things that I put out on LinkedIn yesterday as a sort of provocation in response to these questions that we're talking about is, you know, imagine if playfulness is the answer, or one of a piece in the puzzle to solving the world's problems. What if all of us lived our lives as a playful experience? So that means we're living it individually, you know, according to our own individual playful experience. That doesn't mean that, you know, everybody's going to come in and, you know, have forced fun every day. That's not playful, that's forced fun. But imagine, like, if you connect to your own sense of playfulness and what that what experience is for you. That might be reading a book, that might be solving a puzzle, that might be going for a run, it might be any number of things that you derive that sense of joy, freedom, spontaneity, connection. If everybody was doing that and we were doing that together as a collective, what would that mean for what would that look like?
Oh, well, hopefully the world would be like the massive big positive psychology conference where it's just a vibe. Like,
I mean, what would
that
that
would be the
mean for
joke.
our leaders? Would we have better leaders?
For 100%, of course we would. Like, of course we would. When we're on about play, I mean, although play or in a sense of like positive effect, we're often, you know, accessing our ventral vagal nerve. So this is flow, recovery, being on. This is in a focused state. Our body is designed to be in that space. That's where we perform optimally. That's where our work is firing critically. When I'm speaking with organizations now, I'm like, it's got to be brain friendly. Stress, what's it word? Trauma, rigid beliefs, all of that, it makes you ineffective and sick, and it stops you from attaining those audacious goals of yours. Play, of course, yeah. How could you not get better when you are, because you have to release your ego to play.
Yes.
So that's one massive barrier that has been removed to actual true innovation and growth.
And the powerful thing about it is that, you know, we're living in such complexity. The problems that we're facing kind of environmentally, politically, economically, so complex, and it's easy to get in our heads about that and kind of think there's no way out of this. This is just, you know, doom. When you say the word play, playfulness, all of us have this, like, it's so simple. Like, we have an innate understanding of what that feels like in our bodies. There are people who have lost connection with that, and that's a piece of work in itself. And one of the things that I put forward in my workshop at the conference was that to me, it's a bit like love in that way. Like, everyone knows what that feeling of love is, but to try and articulate it, unpick it, describe it, create it, then it gets really messy and really sticky. But if play is the answer, and, you know, I'm doing a kind of if, I'm not saying that it necessarily, you know, it's a kind of hypothetical question. if all we need to do is think play, to me, that just brings such a sort of simplicity back to it that cuts through all of that complexity, yet is incredibly deep in its impact. And I
Yeah.
saw that happen. I saw that happen, and I've seen it happen, in previous work the previous workshops and things that I've run. But to just pose the question to people: what if this was a playful experience? The shift that makes, and I had people come up to me afterwards just saying, "Oh my goodness, that was like, it's really inspired me to go and do things differently, to make a change here, to,
Love that.
and it just
Kudos.
feels, it's so simple. It's so simple. It's like just one word, and yet you can see the shift that has and the impact that has for people. And and people, although we all say, oh, play is really frivolous, and we need to take it, it's not for work because work is serious, we need to, come on, let's get down to the serious problems here. Yet every time I work with somebody and we talk about play, their feedback is that it feels incredibly deep. We do incredibly deep work in that space.
Yeah. And what is play? Play is being curious, being creative, looking at what else could be. It will always give us more answers than seriousness.
Yeah.
It is working in alignment with every element of how your body and your brain works. It's like the operating system. It's literally like accessing that. But we've mentioned this before. For adults, we have to be given permission to play because we are shamed for wanting, or we're weird and we're odd. And so you have to have this rebel. You've either got to be in a position of power to feel, have the safety that I can act in whatever way that I want to, without any kind of kickback, or you've got to be the rebellious spirit and surround yourself with individuals. So it's how do we actually take that narrative that it's safe to play and actually it's strategic to play so that people feel safe in accessing it?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think, it can come, this is where we come into that co-creation piece. There was a lot of discussion at the conference about, it's not leaders or teams, it's not systems or individuals, it's a two-way exchange.
Yes.
So I think there are things that we can do for ourselves as individuals, and there are things that we can, task our leaders to do in terms of setting the tone. And I think there's an understanding that if we are all doing the things we need to do as individuals, then we're creating a system, that's like we as individuals can affect the system that we are in. And it often feels like we can't do that, but that's how it works. That's how the systems are created. So there are things that you can do where you don't have, say, that sense of permission in the environment overtly. There are still things that you can do for yourself that help you to nurture that playfulness. And it is something that you can nurture. It is something that it needs to be nurtured, needs to be cultivated, because we're talking about reactivating a neural pathway in our brain that has been, or loads of neural pathways in our brain that have been shut down or, quietened down. The grass is overgrown on those bits.
For sure.
Because we've become adults. So pathways are there and we're looking at reactivating them. And we know that the more we do that, the clearer those pathways will get, the stronger those connections get, and the more prone we'll be, the more open we'll be to being playful. And that could be as simple as, my husband next door on is a very serious corporate call, where nobody's, laughing or having much fun, but it comes off the call, he's got a little playfulness.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
And it's just reminding our brains, if you like that the neural pathways are there, so we can do that for ourselves individually. We can approach the way that we approach our own problems and challenges. No one else needs to be part of our thought process in that. What if we came to things and said, well, if I was playing with this, how would I approach it? If I'm planning a workshop or something that I need to think about, I'll quite often get down on the floor here and I'll map it out in the space and I'll make it a playful process, even though it's a cognitive task. we can all do that for ourselves. So we can give ourselves that permission to be kind of privately playful. That's one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Like all my work is mind maps and memes and like stupid audios and stickers because it feels fun to create my work in that way.
Yeah.
And I do way better.
And it always like it always amuses me how many people will admit that when you ask them, but yet that's not like acknowledged as a very often as a sort of important thing. Like in the office, people will sort of keep those of, oh well, I'm a bit weird, and I'm a bit, I like to do it like this just because it makes it a bit fun. It's like, great, yes, like
That
we
could
all
work
do
for us
that.
all.
Let's all
Yeah.
make it there. Why are we?
Yeah.
Why is that a private? Like, oh, don't tell anyone. But I'm trying to make. Don't tell anyone. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to enjoy my job. I'm trying to make it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to enjoy myself.
I hate this fact. Like, it's cool. It's cool to be engaged and it's cool to have fun and it's cool to like your life
Yeah.
and find ways to like your life.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying to me is going back to this idea that we use the frameworks that we use and the patterns that we use because it served somebody at some point. So they made up a rule and a story about it, and we took it and we claimed it as truth. There is no such thing as truth. There is just whatever story is kind of thrown out at that time that we claim as a collective. And I was reading a book about positive organizational change, and the chap, what did he say? It was something like, it is a moral obligation to prioritize the human experience. If you are ever in a situation when you can elevate yourself or elevate a situation for others, then we should do that. And that's not this is another conversation for another day. It's not through punishment and kind of coercion and bullying, although there is definitely a place for discipline and consequences and boundaries. But it's about like just showing up. And when we choose, we are the gift that other people need. And it's this idea of the individual, like hyper individualistic living, where left unabated, we fall into the trap. We fall into capitalism. We fall into socials. We fall into just having Tesla. We fall into the bad news. We fall into this whole kind of system that if we don't look up, we're swallowed by. And it is a sad and overwhelming space. Yet we know that community is what we're wired for. But we have to be an active participant in being the best version of ourselves to create a community where people can thrive. Everybody's got to actively participate. It's not a one-person job. But when one person, I can't change you, Sarah. I can never change you. I can only change the way that I show up in the world, which changes the conditions through which you see me, which will hopefully change the way you want to engage with me and the world. And that's how we make the gift. And that's how we make the changes and change the system and rewrite the structures, by daring to just be yourself, basically.
Yeah.
And be curious.
Exactly. And yeah, I love that, this idea of being a gift to other people just through yourself. And again, it just goes back to this simplicity, doesn't it? Like if you just say to people, well, all you need to do is just be yourself. I mean, there's all sorts of layers to that and unpicking and everything. And it's really like that's such a simple context. Sorry, such a simple concept.
Yeah.
So, while we are talking about systems, that we can't ignore the individual within the system, just as we can't ignore the system that the individual sits in. So is this symbiotic thing that's going on?
Good word.
So we can take control of that ourselves. We can influence ourselves. We can do that for ourselves. And one of the things that I love about playfulness and the idea of play is that it is intrinsically, fundamentally relational. So yes, we can enter into playful states and playful mindsets on our own and do things for ourselves, thought experiments, the way that we're working that is playful in ourselves. But in doing that, we're exuding a kind of a joyful, playful energy, which is contagious. But, to your point, we're showing up in a way that influences others to interact with us in a particular way. And if we're showing up in our playful way, that's inviting playfulness then from other people, and we get this ripple effect and this contagion going through society. Well, the way that I set up the workshop that I did at the conference was the first 10 minutes of it was just inviting people into play. And I had a variety of different ways that they could do that. So we had a hopscotch going, we had some improv games, we had a jigsaw, we had some cognitive challenges, puzzles to work out. We had some balloons that people could blow up and play keepy uppies with, or whatever. There were different types of activity that kind of catered for a range of different play preferences. And I just let people interact with that however they wanted, or they could just sit and watch it. And so some of the activities were things that people could play with on their own, and others were ones where they might need to have a partner. But what I noticed was that people were finding people to play with anyway. So yes, there were some improv games that were designed to be in pairs, and people had no problem finding the pair to do that with. The jigsaw was a more solitary thing. The colouring, there was some colouring as well. That was a more solitary thing, but people were doing them together. I saw people kind of going to the jigsaw and helping each other. I saw people sitting together doing the colouring. So I think when we're in that state, we just naturally kind of gravitate to social self as well.
Yes.
It's a way that we relate to others. It's a way that we interact, because it's about creating safety. I think so much of what stops us interacting in the world with others today, and going back to your very first example that you shared, where you were stepping out of your comfort zone and interacting differently with people recently, if we're safe to do that, then we do it in ways with curiosity, and we can bring playfulness to it. But when I think because we don't often feel safe, we feel like we need to perform in a role or meet expectations somehow of other people or be a particular version of ourselves, we're kind of often a bit more restricted, and we don't feel brave enough to have that conversation, or we wouldn't ever say that in front of that person. But if we're in our playful state, and we're all in our playful state, and we all acknowledge that's a sort of implicit understanding between all of us, then we get rid of a lot of those barriers, and we can just be ourselves and gravitate. And what happens is we tend to gravitate to other people and make connections.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to understand that, like, even understanding that dynamic in itself, I think, is powerful. And there was a conversation in one of the sessions that I went to about, how do we, there is this, and it's not or, it's and dynamic between the individual and the system. And how do we kind of communicate that? And this is where it comes to the leaders. And if we can help leaders understand that dynamic, that actually it can alleviate a lot of stress off them. Yes, you're setting the tone, but it's not all about what you do. It's also about what others do. So how do you facilitate for others rather than direct others?
Yep, we want those flatter systems.
Yeah, and how do you embody, if you were to embody that yourself, then that's going to ripple out to other people. So actually, if you are focusing on you as a leader and how to be a good leader, which is actually about being a good human, then, and if all leaders were doing that, then that ripples outwards to their teams and the wider organizations and everything. That's how we create the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. A leader's work is to become the best version of themselves and at the service of others. Yet people don't realize that's what they're signing up for. They think it's going to be pay rises and resourcing and directing. That's management. Like leadership, that is a completely different gift. But absolutely, gone are the days, or we are waking up to trying to fix symptoms. I'm sick of symptoms thinking, and we're getting back to those systems. And there is that statistic, isn't there? And I'm trying to think, within the trauma work that I do, we're taught that it's so important to teach like neurobiologically informed trauma support, because when we can get 10% of a system to buy into it, that then becomes systemic change. You only need 10, and I read somewhere that it might even be a smaller percentage. So when we actually break that down to the people in our orbit, we only need like say 5 to 10% of those people to buy into our messaging, and then they'll go out and they'll have 5 or 10%, and then before we know it, it's not radical anymore to discuss this idea of being a playful adult. It's like, of course, that is my innate birthright. I am not on this planet to serve within a system designed to serve somebody else. I am within a system that is there to to elevate everyone. And I'll buy into that. I'm happy to participate and be a hard worker if I think that what I'm doing is benefiting something bigger than myself and not just somebody's financial gains. Yeah, yeah. It's so exciting.
It is. And when I have conversations like this, I'm filled with so much hope and optimism for the future, which I think is important given how much, doom and gloom there is, and and fears. And it's not to say that those fears are unfounded and we shouldn't be listening to them, but actually there is hope through
There
it
is
all.
hope. There
And
is hope.
that's the important thing. And when we know there is hope, and then we create a way forward, and
But
I think plays the way.
I agree. I agree. And for the fact that there is a lot of fear mongering, and we know that the brain is wired to get stuck in that problem. But we are having all of this horrors, but we are having this innovation that can, we don't know what is going to set us free. We don't know what action we can take. So if we remain frozen in fear, then we're screwed. And the only solution, the only antidotes to fear is play, really, isn't it? That is it. So I'm with you.
Taking that, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
And
true.
that leads me on to I'm just going to make this one last point, and then I think we need to sort of start wrapping up. But something that came from Martin Seligman. So Martin Seligman is the founder of the positive psychology as we know it today, and he wasn't at the conference, but he did a Ask Marty session. So he dialed in. This is modern technology for you. He dialed in and had a Q&A session, which was great. When he was talking about, we've been talking about this idea of, yes, AI is great and it can do all these tasks, and that means that we can get back to being human and do what humans do best and reconnect with our human selves. And what he said was that actually we still need, like, what AI is great at doing is deduction. So it will look for most logical answer to problems based on the available information. It's really good at doing that. It can do that quicker than us. Great, can solve math problems. It can do all of these things. But what we need, where we bring our value as humans in this world in terms of innovation and progression, is the power of abduction. So he was saying that, AI could not have done what Charles Darwin did. AI could not have done what Einstein did for the world, because these genius minds have this power of abduction, which is going beyond deduction, which arrive at the answer that is not the most conducive based on existing evidence. It's going a step beyond. And sometimes we have to take that leap of faith to make real progress.
That's amazing. That's like mic drop.
Yeah.
How? Yeah,
Beyond the powers
absolutely.
of deduction.
Exactly.
Doesn't that give us back so much power? It's not just like, oh yeah, well, we can go and just be tree huggers and or be all cozy, go back to our animal roots and connect with our inner selves while the AI does all the work. Like, actually, no, we hold the power here because we have this extra power and this is as a collective. This isn't everybody who has this. I mean, I'm not a genius. I can't do this abduction, but as a species, we have this power to go beyond, actually, to think outside of the box, literally.
Yeah.
to think beyond what may be the most logical and obvious deduction.
Yeah,
And play is what allows us to do that, because we go there and we can experiment with it at low risk. It's
exactly.
our lab, it's our sandbox for doing that kind of thing.
Kapow. Absolutely agreed. Learning to keep AI in its place, not being scared of it, but controlling it so that it doesn't control us. That's going to be the secret sauce for the future. I really do. I'm interested to see what the next few years brings. And I very much hope that we have a more playful, more empowered, more critically thinking species than the one that we've currently got. It's been awesome, Sarah, getting to hear all about the wonderful world of positive psychology. And I'm so gutted I didn't get to see your presentation. I bet it was top tier, top draw, I can imagine, Sarah.
Well, I don't know, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and there was a lot of fun going on in the room, and that alone brings me joy and makes me happy, because
Yeah, it's all worth it.
that makes it worth it, as we've said. Exactly. So, and I really enjoyed talking about it with you as well, and unpicking it and
Snapsies.
sharing, and hearing your thoughts and inputs on it as well. It was a loss to the conference that you weren't able to be there.
Thank you. I will. Definitely I will do. So for our listeners out there, hopefully that has piqued whatever that word is, your interest to find out more about positive psychology and what it actually does. It's not some warm and fuzzy science that looks at Pollyanna thinking and rainbows and unicorns. It is a hard science that really looks at human thriving, and I mean through every lens, through your neurobiology, the way your brain is functioning, to psychology, to how we embrace the world. So get involved, get excited, and know that the reality that you are having now can change in a moment when you choose to play, to show up differently, and to be more creative. For those of you who are feeling that you could have a little bit more play in your day, then get in touch with Sarah, get in touch with myself, and we can talk you through this. But take time, micro moments within your day, to do something that just brings you joy. I promise you, over time, like Sarah was saying, you will reawaken those neural pathways. And then you'll look back and you'll be like, whoa, how my life changed. And I didn't even see it happen. But isn't it so much better? So, yeah, Sarah, have you got anything else that you will add?
I don't know if I can add to that. That was a beautiful summary. I think, if in doubt, play. That's going to be my
Bish
motto for
bash
the day.
bosh.
Bish bash
I
bosh.
love
If in
it.
doubt, play. And yeah, as Lucy said, if anything in this has piqued your interest, you're interested in finding out more, whether for yourself, for your team, for your organization, all our details are in the show notes, and you can contact us on social media as well.
Kind of
So
thing.
yeah, we're out there basically. You can find us, and we will be open and very happy to talk to anybody about any of the things that have come up in our podcasts so far.
Absolutely. We'll
We
say
will say adieu.
Adieu until next time. To you and you and you. Take it easy, my friends.
I will
Until
see you
next
next
time.
time. Goodbye.
Bye.